Good morning and welcome to Chiari 2022, a day of hope. Chiari can mean different things to different people. To a new patient, Chiari can mean confusion, fear, or sometimes relief from finally putting a name to what they know has been wrong for years. To a long-term patient, Chiari too often means pain, disability, missed opportunities, and a change in lifestyle. To family and friends, Chiari can be a mystery. Why can't mom do this anymore? And to researchers, Chiari is a puzzle to solve through testing and trial and error. Chiari is all these things and more, but one thing that is not usually associated with Chiari is hope. However, today is all about hope, and it is my hope that by the end of the day, whether you are a patient, family member, friend, doctor, researcher, or just someone with a passing interest in Chiari, you will leave today with the feeling that we are making progress in our fight to conquer Chiari. I think you will, because I truly believe we are. And I believe that we are on the verge of significant breakthroughs in understanding Chiari at a deep level, and that this will lead to advances in diagnosis and treatment. With that being said, what I'd like to do with my time this morning is first introduce myself and conquer Chiari, then provide a brief overview of the Chiari 2022 platform and the day's activities, and finally give an overview of Chiari research with a focus on where we are today, where we've come from, and where we are going. So to begin, a little background on who I am and what Conquer Chiari is about. My name is Rick Labuda, and I've been involved professionally with Chiari for nearly 20 years, and personally for even longer. I've probably met or communicated with many, if not most of the people in this audience. But if we haven't met, I have spent most of the last 2 decades as an advocate working as the founder and executive director of Conquer Chiari. As such, I have spoken with and heard the stories of many, many frustrated patients, scared parents, and caring professionals. And though sometimes the misery can seem overwhelming, the strength and compassion that people in the Chiari community display on a daily basis never ceases to amaze and inspire me. One of my primary roles during that time has been to develop patient education materials. As such, I have written hundreds of patient-focused articles on Chiari and even 2 fairly popular books. Equally as important, I have overseen millions of dollars of research grants, worked directly with researchers and doctors on important projects, and am the co-author on 13 journal publications. And though I wear several Chiari hats, the most important one, the one I can never forget because of the scars and pain that it leaves, is that of being a Chiari patient myself. I was diagnosed in the fall of 1998 with a large herniation and syrinx shortly after the birth of our first child. I had surgery in January of the next year and in many ways have been recovering ever since, so I can truly empathize on a deep level with many of you in the audience today. However, today is not about my personal Chiari story, but rather it is about Conquer Chiari and the progress we are making. Since the very beginning, Conquer Chiari has strived, and in my opinion succeeded, to be innovative, efficient, and impactful. Conquer Chiari started in 2004 as the CNS Patient Education Foundation because our initial focus was on patient education. At that time, there wasn't a lot of information easily available and accessible to patients, so we started by publishing an online newsletter which contained articles based on recent medical journal publications. The idea took off, and soon we had a good-sized audience. As technology advanced, we created a nicer and nicer website and kept adding materials and content in a variety of formats. After a couple of years, we had raised some money, so we decided to expand our focus to include research, and the organization was rebranded as Conquer Chiari. That's when things really started to get moving. In 2007, we awarded our first research grants and organized a professional research conference focused exclusively on Chiari. Then, the next year, the Conquer Chiari Walk Across America was launched, and from humble beginnings has grown to become the engine that drives our incredible progress. That same year, not forgetting about the importance of patient education, Conquer Chiari, A Patient's Guide was published. This unique book was a combination of science and patient experiences and was an immediate hit. Next, in 2010, Conquer Chiari was awarded a grant from the National Institutes of Health to organize a Chiari research conference, which identified the many knowledge gaps that existed in terms of Chiari and how they were affecting diagnosis, treatment, and outcomes. The results from this conference formed the basis for a lobbying campaign which culminated with Congress directing the NIH to focus resources on Chiari research. Not satisfied with the pacing of traditional research grants, in 2012 we established the Conquer-Chiari Research Center at the University of Akron. This unique partnership put Conquer-Chiari directly in the middle of the research activity, rather than just awarding grants and hoping for the best, and it has been an unqualified success. The CCRC, as we like to refer to it by, quickly found its footing and became recognized leaders in morphometrics, biomechanics, and the cognitive and psychological impact of Chiari. Continuing the innovation trend, in 2015, Chiari 1000 was launched, an audacious project to create a massive research database of Chiari patients. To date, the Chiari 1000 alone has generated 18 journal publications, and there are still more to come. Conquer-Chiari continues to innovate, but we will never forget that an important part of our mission is to empower patients through education. In 2020, we reorganized the hundreds of educational content items on our website into the Conquer-Chiari Patient Library. This made them easily searchable using filters and/or keywords. Plus, all materials can be easily downloaded for printing or sharing. And that brings us to today. With Chiari 2022, we bring you another unique educational and networking experience, an event which I am sure you will find engaging, informational, and above all, hopeful. Turning to today's activities, let me start by thanking our platinum sponsor, UPMC Neurological Institute, for their support. Chiari 2022 is structured much like an in-person conference. There's an auditorium, poster hall, exhibit hall, discussion tables, activities, and you can chat with other attendees. All of the activities are accessible either through the doors and banners in the lobby, as you see here, or through the menu bar at the top of each page. Also in the lobby is our help desk. If at any time you have a technical problem or are having trouble with something, just click on the help desk to chat with someone that will provide assistance. I will touch on a couple of highlights, but if you haven't yet, I encourage you to click on the Start Here banner in the lobby to watch a video which details all of the event features. Also, at some point today, please stop by the exhibit hall to thank UPMC for their support and visit our other sponsors and exhibitors. Since you're watching this presentation, you've obviously found the auditorium. Throughout the day, we will have 9 presentations divided into 3 sessions, an AM scientific session, a medical session, and then a PM scientific session. During each presentation, you can type in any questions that you have, and then after every 3 presentations at the end of each session, we will have a question and answer panel with the presenters where they will answer as many questions as they can. Throughout the day, announcements will pop up on your screen 5 minutes before each presentation. If at any time you want to review the day's agenda, simply go back to the auditorium and click on the screen. If you miss a presentation, don't worry. Starting tomorrow, they will be available to view on the Chiari 2022 site for 30 days. Available throughout the whole day is the poster hall. Here we have both research posters, which describe specific projects, and education posters, which are on broad topics. Each poster can be viewed or downloaded, and as with the presentations, you can enter a question while viewing a poster. Conquer-Chiari and CCRC personnel will be monitoring the posters and answering questions throughout the day. So if you do leave a question, be sure to check back later for the answer. Also available throughout the whole day is a really unique feature we have set up for roundtable discussions. Each table allows up to 8 people at a time to meet and discuss specific topics, such as being the parent of a child with Chiari or living with Chiari. This is a great way to meet new people and share ideas about how to cope. If a table is full, just check back later to see if a seat has opened up. To give your brain a break, Chiari 2022 also has some fun activities. At the photo booth, you can make a custom memento of your day, and if you'd like, share it in our photo gallery, where of course you can see pictures of other attendees. You can share your thoughts using hashtag Chiari22 on Instagram or Twitter. All social media posts made during the event will be displayed on the social wall. And you can win a Chiari 2022 shirt by trying your hand at the Chiari quiz. But be careful, it is not easy and you only get one try. Finally, just like an in-person event, you can connect with other attendees simply by clicking on the chat icon at any time. Here you can search for someone specific to send a message to or open a chat with. It is really up to you how you want to spend your day, but whatever you decide, I think you will find it worthwhile. Now to the main part of the talk, Chiari research. As I said earlier, I've been involved with Chiari research in one capacity or another for close to 20 years. In order to maximize the value of our research dollars, which are precious, we believe it is important to understand the full context surrounding the projects we decide to fund. This means understanding the history of Chiari research in general, the current state of Chiari research, and where we would like it to go in the future so that we can have the highest impact possible. One way to do this is by thinking about Chiari research as individual research paths and looking at how these paths tend to progress over time. One example of a path might be the cognitive impact of Chiari, or another might be what's termed the pathophysiology of Chiari, meaning why do people experience the symptoms they do, or in other words, what causes Chiari. In thinking about Chiari research in this way, we realize that, in general, different topics or research paths tend to go through 4 different phases of development. First is the observation phase. This is where physicians report things they have observed on individuals or with a limited number of patients. In the medical literature, this translates to case reports primarily. Of course, the observations can come from patients as well, especially with the growth of social media. So for example, a large number of patients reporting cognitive issues or brain fog, or noting that other family members have also been diagnosed with Chiari. Second is the fishing phase. Now, I don't mean this term in a negative or unscientific way, but basically it is where, based on observations, researchers then begin to quantify the issue and look for clues and associations that might help them explain it. In the literature, this often translates to publications of larger patient series which include detailed demographics, medical history, etc., or projects such as the Chiari 1000, which built a database to explore different associations. So for example, from this phase, it emerged that the amount of tonsillar descent alone in Chiari patients is not strongly related to symptom severity. Next, the results of the first 2 phases are used to develop a hypothesis or an idea that explains the initial observations. Once a hypothesis is formed, it can be explored more rigorously and refined through repeated testing. Finally, once a hypothesis has been strongly established, comes the most important phase, which is translating those findings into the clinical setting so that they can impact patient experiences and outcomes. Keeping in mind that no model is perfect and that not everything will fit neatly into this concept, we can take a look at different Chiari research paths, where we are with each, where we came from, and where we are going. Starting with cognitive impact, which Dr. Allen will go into in depth during his talk later this morning, we are squarely in the hypothesis phase, with some work already reaching clinical transition. This research started with patient reports of cognitive issues and brain fog. Then, several years ago, the CCRC launched a major initiative which over several studies began to quantify and frame the problem through neuropsychological testing and advanced imaging. While some of this work is still ongoing, we are beginning to shift to testing a hypothesis, which in simple terms is that a lot of, but not all, the cognitive issues experienced by patients are due to chronic pain essentially using up their cognitive resources. And what's really exciting about this line of research is that some clinical groups are already looking at how cognitive testing and imaging can be used to inform diagnosis and post-surgical evaluation. Next, the psychological impact of Chiari is a little bit behind cognitive impact in terms of progress. However, like cognitive impact, it started with patient reports, but this time, reports of anxiety and hopelessness. Next, the Chiari 1000, which contained measures to assess psychological well-being, clearly showed alarmingly high rates of depression and anxiety in patients, similar to what is seen with post-traumatic stress disorder. Further analysis also showed that depression is an important predictor of symptom improvement after surgery and disability levels among both surgical and non-surgical patients. From this, Dr. Allen has formulated a theory that what is called the HPA axis is compromised in Chiari patients, and the CCRC is working on ways to test this idea. In the future, we hope that clinicians will routinely screen for depression and anxiety and provide appropriate services when necessary. Another major CCRC research area involves the biomechanics of Chiari, which Dr. Loth will discuss in detail in the next presentation. But in general, this research path started with 2 observations. First, that not every person with herniated tonsils has symptoms, and second, that in symptomatic patients, herniated tonsils disrupt the natural flow of spinal fluid between the brain and spine, and also that these tonsils pulsate abnormally in Chiari patients. As such, previous and current work has focused on developing tools and techniques to measure the skull and brain anatomy of Chiari patients to look for a better anatomical definition of Chiari, to understand how anatomy might influence symptom development and surgical outcomes, and to look for clues as to what Chiari is at a fundamental level. These morphometric studies, as they are called, have so far compared adult females with Chiari to controls, adult males with Chiari to controls, adult females to subjects with low-lying tonsils but no symptoms, adult females with Chiari but different related conditions, and adolescents with tonsillar herniation but no symptoms to controls. All of this work has led to the realization that most Chiari patients have many more anatomical abnormalities than just herniated cerebellar tonsils, such as abnormally small and angled clivus bones, a general sinking of the hindbrain structures, and odontoid irregularities. In addition, tools have been developed to quantify the motion of the cerebellum, brainstem, and spinal fluid under different conditions in an attempt to link these dynamic features of Chiari to quantifiable symptoms or tissue damage, and also to understand why they occur. From all of this, we are at the early stages of formulating theories to explain what has been found so far, and in the future hope to develop objective, quantifiable tools for Chiari diagnosis that go beyond simply measuring tonsillar herniation. The precise definition of pathophysiology is the physiological processes associated with a disease, and the definition of etiology is the cause of a disease. However, for our purposes, we are going to use the term pathophysiology to mean a true understanding of Chiari, what causes it in terms of anatomy, what causes specific symptoms, how it can be treated, etc. In other words, a complete understanding of the condition. Pathophysiology is one of the research paths that doesn't fit quite as neatly into our four-phase model, because over the years, different theories have been floated and have influenced clinical practice, but none of these theories has fully addressed all aspects of Chiari to date. The first theory of Chiari, and the one that drives current practice, is that Chiari patients have small posterior fossas, or the back of their skull, which results in the cerebellum herniating out of the skull into the spine. This theory holds that symptoms are then due to what is called the mass effect of the herniated tissue pushing on surrounding tissues, and the disruption of the flow of spinal fluid. Based on this theory, decompression surgery has become the standard of care for Chiari patients. However, research has shown that not all Chiari patients have small posterior fossas, and perhaps more importantly, that between 1 to 3% of the general population have tonsillar herniation that meets the 5 millimeter definition of Chiari, but majority of whom will never experience any Chiari-related symptoms. Another theory that developed from one surgeon was that tethering at the base of the spinal cord pulls down on the cerebellum, and that tethered cord release should be the primary treatment for Chiari. While some Chiari patients do also have tethered cord syndrome, there is little to no evidence to support this theory that the tethered cord is a direct cause of Chiari, and the idea has not spread in the neurosurgical community. Recently, a surgeon from India has proposed that Chiari-related symptoms arise primarily due to cervical instability, and that the tonsils herniate in an attempt to cushion pinching caused by this instability. This surgeon recommends stabilization surgery as the primary treatment. However, like the small posterior fossa theory, this doesn't explain why so many people have tonsillar herniations but no symptoms. So you can see that these theories, since they are proposed by surgeons, can impact clinical practice before being fully tested. Recently, Conquer Chiari developed a new theory on Chiari pathophysiology, based on all available literature and several internal projects. The details of this theory can be found on a poster in the poster hall, but it is rather complex and will require a lot of testing to refine and prove, which the CCRC has started. In the end, our goal is to establish a widely accepted working theory of Chiari, which in the future will lead to improved diagnosis and also new effective treatments. Surgical technique, which is an area Conquer-Chiari is not focused on, is a bit different in that by definition it spans all phases at once. But it is important to realize that surgeons are continuously working to improve the specifics of Chiari surgery in an effort to improve outcomes. This includes identifying patients who are candidates for bone-only decompressions and trying different materials for duroplasty. A large portion of the Chiari medical literature is devoted to comparing surgical techniques and refinements. Outcomes research, however, is a focus area for Conquer-Chiari, and one where progress is being made and the path forward is clear. In the past, outcome reports were dominated by case studies and small patient series, with surgeons reporting their general impression of symptom improvement. This gave way to larger patient series and clinicians proposing different outcome measures. Over the years, the Chicago Chiari Outcome Scale has emerged as a useful tool to compare surgical techniques, but it is not ideal from a patient perspective, and that CCOS scores are often higher than patient-reported outcomes. It's also important to note that the studies have been reported on symptom-specific improvements, long-term recurrence, and conservative outcomes, providing patients today with a lot more data than used to be available. In this regard, the Chiari 1000 has proven to be very useful in both capturing the patient perspective and identifying predictors of symptom improvement after surgery. On the negative predictor side, these include depression, having a family member with Chiari, and symptom duration longer than 2 years before diagnosis, meaning that patients with any of these characteristics tend to report less symptom improvement after surgery. The Chiari 1000 has also shown that nearly 80% of adults experience a moderate or higher level of neck-related disability, regardless of whether they have had surgery or not. Again, symptom duration seems to play a role with disability, as do pain and depression. In the near future, it is our goal to undertake carefully controlled clinical trials to build a statistical model which can predict patient outcomes after surgery. It is also our belief that outcomes cannot be effectively described with a single measure, but rather multiple measures should be used, including the CCOS, Neck Disability Index, and patient-reported symptom improvement. Therefore, it is our long-term goal to incorporate these into clinical practice. Genetics has also been a focus area of Conquer-Chiari research. As a research path, focus on genetics emerged from reports of Chiari running in certain families. For many years, physicians dismissed this, but the evidence is now overwhelming that heredity plays a role in some Chiari cases. For example, the Chiari 1000 found that about 10% of patients also have at least one additional affected family member. However, genetic studies funded by Conquer-Chiari and others has shown that it is a complicated picture and will not be easy to figure out. One of our recent studies did find that nearly half of Chiari patients have a genetic variant in one of several collagen-related genes. This finding needs to be explored further to determine what role these genes might play in developing Chiari-type anatomy. Hopefully, as the cost of genetic sequencing keeps coming down, we will be able to determine how genes influence the development of symptomatic Chiari. The end goal of this research path would be that Chiari patients routinely undergo genetic testing to identify what type of Chiari they have, and that this would optimize treatment decisions. Finally, the patient experience or quality of life is an area that receives almost no attention from the research community at large, but it is a focus area for Conquer-Chiari. In fact, it is even in our mission statement, to improve the experiences and outcomes of Chiari patients. This research path is clearly in the fishing phase. While initially anecdotal reports indicated frustration with doctors, chronic pain, and disability were key issues in shaping the Chiari experience, the Chiari 1000 has enabled us to quantify many aspects of Chiari's impact on quality of life, including disability levels, impact on employment, financial impact, and more. In the future, we need to understand how some of these issues can be addressed effectively to improve the quality of life for Chiari patients. In summary, the fourth phase model is not perfect, but it does provide a good context to evaluate where we are with various research paths. As you can see, some paths, like cognitive impact, are ahead of others, such as patient experience. But overall, Chiari research is transitioning from the fishing phase to the hypothesis phase. The momentum is building, and we believe we are on the verge of significant breakthroughs in understanding different aspects of Chiari, which lead us into the last phase, where these findings can have a direct impact on the care patients receive and improve their lives. Now that we've reviewed where Chiari research in general stands today and where it's headed, I'd like to take a moment to talk about Conquer Chiari's position in the Chiari research world. Conquer Chiari, by every metric, is a leader. With more than 4.7 million in research projects funded, we are the world's largest non-governmental funder of Chiari research. This money has produced 77 peer-reviewed journal publications to date, and we currently have 19 active ongoing research projects. Most of these active projects are described in detail in the poster hall, but at a high level, we have 11 projects that are focused on morphometrics, biomechanics, and pathophysiology, 6 focused on cognitive and psychological impact, and 2 on quality of life issues. But it's not just size and scope that makes Conquer Chiari a leader. We are also extremely efficient with our research program. One of the ways to measure efficiency in research is by average dollars spent per research paper. If you factor in papers that will be published from funds already awarded, our average cost per paper is between $50,000 and $55,000. In contrast, estimates for other disease-based research in general range from $100,000 to $200,000 per paper. One of the reasons we are so efficient is because we are continuously innovating. The CCRC and the Chiari 1000 are two great examples of this, and enabled us to produce high-quality, impactful research year after year. But our innovation doesn't stop there. We also strive to be creative in communicating both our and other research advances through research updates and events like this. Finally, it is said you can judge someone by the company they keep, and in that regard, we are in good standing as well. Our reputation in the research community has attracted doctors and scientists from world-class organizations such as Harvard, Brown, Duke, Emory, the Cleveland Clinic, Ohio State, and more. While we have made great progress in recent years, the path forward will not be easy. Research is expensive and takes time, often years to bear fruit. And unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges the Chiari community faces is a lack of government attention on Chiari research. The annual budget for the NIH is roughly $45 billion, yet Chiari is lucky if it gets a single project funded in a year. That is why next year, in 2023, Conquer Chiari is going to launch an effort to get the NIH to track Chiari funding as a line item, the way they do with so many other diseases, and to commit to a minimum amount of funding per year. Despite the challenges that we continue to face, the key to our success in the past and the key to our success moving forward is our volunteers. As I said earlier, the Walk Across America is the financial engine that drives our research program, and it is completely dependent on amazing volunteers. People like Debbie Williams and Brianna Knight in West Virginia, Agnes and Haley Starr in Buffalo, the Wells family in Arizona, the Josies in Michigan, Anne Marie Hendrickson in New Jersey, Michelle in Long Island, Christine Mulhern in Pennsylvania, and so many more. These volunteers commit their time and energy for the cause and have raised incredible amounts of money and awareness, and without them, I can say with certainty that we would not be where we are today. But there are a lot of heroes in addition to the walk site organizers. There are many ways to get involved, as evidenced by these stories of Chiari heroes. Julie, a Chiari patient, hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, all the while handing out Chiari bracelets, sharing her story, and raising money. Her goal was to raise $1 per mile hike, which she surpassed by raising nearly $3,000. Troy Hahn has a daughter and 2 nieces with Chiari. Since 2019, Troy has proudly displayed the Conquer Chiari awareness logo on the front of his Team 20 race car. But Troy and Team 20 Racing do more than that. They also raise more than $6,000 per year for research, which they present at a walk site each year. Or there's 7-year-old Jackson in Minnesota. When his older brother Joshua was diagnosed, he wanted to do something special. He decided a lemonade stand. So every year on Joshua's Zipperversary, they have a party with his stand Lemonade for Chiari by Jackson, which raises money for the Minnesota walk site. In 2021, he became Minnesota's youngest corporate sponsor and raised over $600. Then there's Paisley Willow, who was diagnosed at just 10 months old and had her first surgery in 2017. Like many, she has had multiple surgeries and complications. Despite everything, the Paisley's family decided to remain positive and turn their journey into a mission. This is how Cans for Chiari was born, and every year they collect aluminum cans throughout the state of Arizona and scrap them to raise money for research. I hope I've been able to convey to you the progress that Conquer Chiari has made, the momentum that is building, and the promise that the future holds. But that progress is not guaranteed. COVID has had a dramatic impact on our fundraising and walk participation. In order to continue on this path to conquering Chiari, we desperately need more people to get involved. please consider becoming a site organizer. It can be an amazing experience, and Conquer Chiari provides support and guidance every step of the way. Or if the walk is not for you, there are many other ways to raise money and get involved. To learn more or volunteer, simply email hnebel@conquerchiari.org. Thank you for your time. Dr. Loth is up next.